So the Lions and the Buccaneers had a pretty great matchup. Early on, it seemed pretty ugly. Baker Mayfield, early interception. It looked like the Lions were going to blow him out, and lo and behold, it was actually a pretty decent brawl. Baker Mayfield stepped up. I believe he had over 300 yards passing, where Jared Goff, he had a pretty good day as well. He went 30 of 43, 287 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, passer rating of 103.5. So the Lions, we talked about, you have had your questions about the Lions, and you've had questions about their head coach, Dan Gamble, as you nicknamed him. I want to know, do you think the Lions are actually a good team, or do you think that they're just a nice Cinderella story?
I think they're a good team. I do think they're, a worthy opponent to the 49ers next week. I mean, I don't think they're going to win that game, but I do think it's going to be a fun game to watch and maybe pretty close. But in this game, one question I have for you, Nate, before I get into my analysis.
Sure.
What were the Lions thinking about? I'm sorry. What were the Bucs thinking about when they scored a touchdown, right, and then went for 2 when they were down by 14 points? Why did they go for 2 on that score? I could see kicking the extra point being a 1-score game with an extra point, and then maybe you get the next score, you go for 2 to win it, maybe with 20 seconds left or something, at the end. But I was dumbfounded. What were they thinking about there? I didn't get it. I don't understand it.
So I just looked up your question, and what I have here is if you convert the 2-point, you're only down by 5 at that point, and a touchdown automatically wins it for you. So they were just they were playing literally. They thought their defense could hold up. You get the ball right back. You score another touchdown.
No, they'd be down by 6.
No, if you do the 2. If you do the 2, so what it was, I believe it was
they were down by 14, right?
No.
They were down by 14.
They scored a touchdown.
They missed.
You're right. Down by 6. My fault.
Yeah, down by 6.
So a touchdown wins it.
The extra point.
The extra point. Yeah, the extra point. But still,
why take the risk? I don't get that. What is the point? Yeah. I didn't understand why they were doing that. That made no sense to me.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. I don't know why Todd Bowles decided to do that.
I mean, the Lions. They stepped up at the end, right? They scored 14 points in the fourth quarter. The Bucs scored 6. They could have had 7 there. And, I thought Baker Mayfield played well. Unfortunately, he had 2 picks. He had 3 touchdowns, but 2 picks. One of them was a bounce up in the air to Mike Evans there. He threw the ball out like a laser beam.
Mike Evans had an uncharacteristic early game. A lot of drops, a lot of bounce.
He started out slow, but he made the catch of the game. That catch he made right down by the goal line.
Yeah, left side, yeah.
He had to turn his head, and the ball kind of dropped in there, and he caught it with his hands off to the side there. That was a fantastic catch. And I thought, once he made that catch and they got the score, they were playing him score for score right until the fourth quarter, and then the Lions got ahead, and the Bucs couldn't come back. So, it was a pretty close game stat-wise. The total yards for the Lions, 391. The Bucs, 408. So there wasn't much difference there. The passing, the Lions, 277. The Bucs, 350, almost 349, almost 350. And the rushing, pretty even. The Lions, 114, and the Bucs, 89 yards. So it's a pretty close game. And I thought both quarterbacks played well, but those two picks by Mayfield, that cost the Bucs.
Well, the last interception, you had an opportunity to drive down, go for the 2. You had to go for the 2-pointer at that point because you failed.
Had to get 8 points there. I think that I didn't understand that at all.
It was a weird decision. What I found very fascinating is what I'm going to show everyone out there now. This was Dan Campbell post-game talking about the Lions' journey, where they've been, and now where they're headed, which is now the San Francisco 49ers.
I envisioned that we would have a chance to compete with the big boys, and that's where we're at. All you got to do is get in, and it's about placing yourself the very best position to where you can move. You get a home game, and then maybe you get a second home game, and now all of a sudden it gets a little easier. If you're able to get a 1 seed, you only got to win 2 games, right? And so that's always the objective. But ultimately, once you get in, then it's about matchups, and you find a way to win, and you may have to win 2-0, and it's okay. It's okay. A win's a win in the playoffs. So, here we are. And now we get to go to San Francisco and, We know what kind of team that is, but we're in a great position. We've got a great opportunity.
I absolutely love Dan Campbell. 1,000% love. I love his mentality. I love the way he builds a culture. He believes in his players. He's emotional. I love everything about Dan Campbell. And that's why I'm going to actually agree with you. I thought you might say that they're frauds or that they're pretenders. But I genuinely think this is a good team. They seem like last year. They had, I think, the worst passing defense in the entire NFL last season. And this season, it's not as bad. It's still pretty bad, but it's not as bad. And I think if you fix the pass defense, get a really solid top corner. Like, for instance, it's not going to happen. If you had Sauce Gardner, I think this passing defense goes from 27th to maybe 14th, and we're talking about the Lions as serious Super Bowl contenders. But because their pass defense is 27th, and this defense can get got, and Jared Goff, under pressure, hasn't looked great, then on top of that, your defense is giving up a bunch of yards, we say they can make the playoffs, but I don't think we could put them in the Super Bowl conversation. But I honestly do think this is a genuinely good team. That's why in the pre-preseason predictions, I had them winning the NFC North and winning at least a playoff game. Well, we can check both those boxes off now. They actually did that. First time winning the NFC North since 1993, and the first time winning a playoff game since 1991-1992 season. So they're doing unprecedented stuff, at least in my entire lifetime. They have not won the NFC North or won a playoff game. Much more than my lifetime, about a decade more. So what they're doing is uncharacteristic for the city of Detroit.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That's why I love Dan Campbell. Yeah. He embraces that. That's a motivation factor for him.
Yeah, I think that give Dan Campbell a lot of credit to be able to come in there and in 3 years break out of that losing culture that they've had in Detroit forever, right? Some of his coaching decisions I question a little bit. He does gamble.
That's fair.
He does gamble, and sometimes to his detriment. But he does have the players. They definitely behind him. He's behind them. They've got a great relationship there. It shows, and he's a motivational guy. You hear him talking very optimistically about going into San Francisco and having a good game there, and that rubs off on the players, and I'm sure he's going to have them ready to go.
Yeah, and I really think Dan Campbell, if we're talking about perfect hires, I think Dan Campbell with the Lions at this current time, now it could all fall apart, right? The team could all of a sudden suck very badly next year, the year after. But up until this point, Dan Campbell has been the perfect hire for the city of Detroit and for the Detroit Lions.
Can you tell me why Aaron Glenn is getting
no idea
head coaching interviews?
Why
would anybody think he would be a good head coach?
The rushing defense is good. It's number.
I think he's got their defense.
League,
their defense is an average, a little better than average, right?
The total defense is 19, so it's below average.
Yeah, it's below average.
Below average,
and he's getting looks at head coach. I don't get it.
Their rushing defense is second. Maybe that's it, but I kind of agree with you. I don't understand why he's getting the amount of calls that he's getting, the amount of interviews, because he's not a top candidate, in my opinion. Raheem Morris, I kind of understand that. The talent versus production that the Rams had, that was shocking. The Rams played much better than people thought. We're talking 6.5 wins, and they go out and win, I believe it was 10 games.
Yeah.
So they were very, very impressive. But for me, the Lions this season, offense, 5th in points per game, 3rd in total offense, 2nd in passing offense, 5th in rushing offense, 4th most touchdown passes in the league, 1st most rushing touchdowns in the league. A very efficient and effective running game. David Montgomery, I know from fantasy, very inconsistent on the Bears. Jahmyr Gibbs, we talked about in the draft. Why did they pick a 2nd round prospect at pick, I believe it was number 12? Well, that's why. He's very, very explosive. He looks like he's running 4.3 out there. He's powerful. So that's maybe why. They thought they hit a home run with that. Red zone offense, 3rd in the league. Rushing defense, this is the surprising one. They're 2nd. Aiden Hutchinson's doing a phenomenal job. Jack Campbell, their 1st round linebacker, he's doing a great job. CJ Garner-Johnson, I love the defensive backs to play a little bit better. But You know, you have to live with it. They're 23rd in points allowed, which is the scary part of that game. They're 19th in total defense and 27th in passing defense. If they had an average or an above average passing defense, or rather just, let's say they had the 14th best defense, I think we could seriously consider them Super Bowl contenders. But we take a look at this team and we say, okay, Matthew Stafford threw for over 300 yards against this team. Jared Goff needed to be perfect for them to win this game. Against the Buccaneers, he needed to be damn near perfect after Baker Mayfield threw an interception early. And yet, Baker was matching him touchdown for touchdown after that point until the fourth quarter. So, Jared Goff has rebuilt himself in the city of Detroit, and Dan Campbell even said it. Goff, you're good enough for Detroit, he said after their win against the Rams. But he needs to be perfect in order for this team to go very far. And against unless I think the weather is clear.
I'm pretty far already. They're going to the NFC Championship game.
First time in 32 years.
Yeah. So he's been very good so far.
Years.
He's been great so far.
Oh, he has been, definitely.
But he's got to be perfect in order to beat the 49ers.
Correct.
He can't have turnovers there.
And because it's clear, I don't think they're going to be able to do that. It's going to be clear skies, so Brock Purdy won't have trouble gripping a football. And that's where I'm pretty nervous about if Jared Goff was going to need to perform perfect. Although the offensive line is one of the best in the NFL. I think they're top 3, top 2 maybe. They were number 1 for large sums of the season.
I think they're going to have a hard time against the 49ers defense, but we'll talk about that on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, the Packers had a slightly above average offensive line. Jordan Love wasn't under tremendous amounts of pressure. I think he was 60-40 non-pressure to pressured. Packers got more pressure on Brock Purdy than the 49ers had on Jordan Love. But I do think it's going to be a very difficult game for the Lions next week. But I think if Debo can't go, I think it's going to be very difficult to at least pick the Lions it's going to be very, very difficult to not pick the Lions to at least cover.
Yeah.
Because I do think the way the 49ers play this playoff game, I think it's going to be very difficult for them to put up massive amounts of points and really, widen the gap. But I don't know. I picked the Bills. I thought there's redemption. We both picked the Bills, but I thought it would be a redemption game, and that fell right through. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, if you want to check out the full episode, make sure you click the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to listen to this show anywhere you go, make sure you go to anchor.fm/The Harvey Hour or anywhere you get your podcasts.